Welcome to Pioneer Sports Roundtable. I'm Jake, your moderator. Joining me are Luke and Aaron. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good, man. How about you?
Doing good. Luke?
I can't complain. Just another day.
All right. Well, there's been some exciting news in the sports world recently. One of the hottest topics the last few weeks has been Luka Doncic getting traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I mean, it's definitely shocking. It's just a trade that really happened out of nowhere. Like, I was literally just sitting in my room, listening to music, and then boom, I got that Shams notification that Luka was traded to the Lakers for Anthony Davis. Now, I think it's right now a win for the Mavericks just because I feel like Anthony Davis is just an all-around well-bettered player and I think fits better with the scheme of Dallas. But I think for the long run, what the Lakers are looking for is to move on from LeBron. And to kind of have Luka, who's I think 25, 26 years old, him already being a superstar, he scored 70 points last season, brought his team to the finals. I think he's a solid piece to that team for the long run that could eventually even made them get them to the chip this year.
Luke?
Well, I have a little more not so well look on it. I think it not only is it the worst trade in basketball history, I think this might very well be the worst trade in professional sports history. I think it really redefines on what we think of as players who are untouchable. You know, in the NFL, you have the Patrick Mahomeses and the Josh Allens, who you would think are untouchable. In hockey, you have the Ovechkins and Patrick Kane and others that are untouchable. And in basketball, it was Luka Doncic, just a couple of more guys that really I thought were untouchable. And Anthony Davis, don't get me wrong, he's an absolutely great player, one of the best in the league. But you got to think that, you know, he's sort of in the twilight of his career now. You got to think that the best years are really over, if you're going to be honest. Especially just the way he plays his position, longevity in that position and for that play style isn't the best in the National Basketball Association. No, not one bit at all. And I really don't think that it makes the Mavericks better as of right now. Yes, maybe has an overall well-rounded depth team, might possibly, but in the NBA, you got to have that one star to win a championship. You know, the Celtics have it with Tatum. The Nuggets had it with Jokic. The Bucks had it with Giannis. You got to have that one star player to take you, and I don't think Kyrie Irving can be that player for the Mavericks anymore. I don't think Anthony Davis is that player for the Mavericks, and I think they gave away their present and their future player to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Now, you mentioned longevity in there, and I'd like to talk about that. I don't know if you guys watched Anthony Davis's Mavericks debut, but he actually got hurt. He got hurt and missed the All-Star game this past weekend. How do you guys think that affects the trade in the short term? And do you also think that maybe by the Lakers getting Luka, it's the Lakers maybe trying to sell out for a championship this year for LeBron before he retires?
I mean, I don't know, man. Anthony Davis, they said he's going to be out for several weeks now, so it's definitely going to be a big hit for the Mavericks. And they are probably going to regret this decision. I'd say I agree with you. I do think the Mavericks do win short term, but right now they have lost because with AD being out. I don't know, dude. I just feel like the Lakers, it's both the worst and best trade, I'd say ever, because the Lakers have got such a big star, but with LeBron and Luka being such ball-dominant players, I don't know. I don't see it working well together. But seeing Luka's debut with the Lakers, he did score 14 points. He did go for a 1 for 7 from the three, which, I mean, he hasn't played since Christmas, so I guess that's expected. But I just don't know how two ball-dominant players so, dominant on the court going to play at the same time. I just don't see how it's going to work. I don't think it's going to be compatible, but I guess we'll see.
You know, LeBron James, I think he's the GOAT. We talked about it earlier. You guys can possibly weigh in that later. But he's 40 years old now. He's been on the top of basketball since he was his rookie year in the NBA, which was before at least I was born. I think it was probably before you two were born as well. He's the first ever player in basketball to play with his son on his team. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up playing longer than Anthony Davis. I really don't think it's that, push your chips all in the middle of the table, go for 1 year, go for the trophy. I think it's more of this is going to set up for the future. Luka Doncic's going to be a great player for the next decade in the NBA. And I wouldn't be surprised if LeBron is around for another 5 years either, just the way he's still on top of the league in the MVP running, and he's 40 years old.
I agree with that. You make a very good point. On to our next topic. The NFL season just wrapped up. The Super Bowl just happened. There was some things that happened. The Super Bowl happens, which means before that, the NFL Honors happens. There were some controversial awards given out on the night of the NFL Honors. Josh Allen winning the MVP, Joe Burrow winning Comeback Player of the Year. A lot of people weren't too happy with Jaden Daniels winning Offensive Rookie of the Year. I'd like to know if you guys have any opinions on that as far as the awards that were given out.
I mean, I think Jaden Daniels completely deserved that reward. He completely turned around the whole Commanders franchise. Like, he brought them to the playoffs for the first time in, I think it was over, was it 2 decades? Was the last time? I don't know. But I feel like that was absolutely deserved. Now, the only thing I think that was controversial was the Offensive Player of the Year. I think Jamar Chase should have absolutely gotten that. And I think both Saquon Barkley and Jamar Chase had a great season. But just looking at the Bengals, like what they went through for the whole season, I know they didn't make the playoffs, but they had just had such a tough year, especially with Joe Burrow having a tough year as well. I feel like Jamar Chase kind of just deserved that a little bit more. I don't think the MVP was controversial at all. I think it was both equal. It was really more of just, I felt like who would go farther in the playoffs is what they would kind of base it off of. I know it's not a playoff award, but I just feel like the NFL, especially the MVP awards, kind of look more in playoff contention as well. So I feel like both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson could have gotten the award, and I would have been happy with either.
You know, I agree with him with Jaden Daniels. I can't say I agree with the Jamar Chase. I do think Saquon deserved that as one of them. I think when a running back and you get 2,000 yards in a season and do it the way that Saquon Barkley did it, almost breaking Eric Dickerson's record for most rushing yards in a single season, I think he deserved the Offensive Player of the Year. But the thing I want to talk about is about the MVP. And I think I want to bring up one stat, the PER stat. It's passer efficiency rating. And it basically judges every pass that a quarterback throws to what could have been bases on next-gen stats film and the percentage of clearance or space that receivers have whenever they're working with stuff. And Lamar Jackson, I think they started grading it in 2016. It was the year Patriots won the Super Bowl against the Falcons. It's the first year they started scoring this stat. And since then, Lamar Jackson's 2024 season, he had the best PER rating in football history. And I think he had one of the most dominant seasons. His other MVP that he won last year, I think he's way outperformed himself from last year. He's continuing to improve. I think he had one of the best quarterback seasons that we've saw in a very long time. And for him not to get the MVP, I just think it's unbelievable. I think it was just they didn't want to give it to him 2 times in a row, and Allen was the second best option. I want to hear what you have to say about this, Sam.
Well, I think Allen deserved it. I think that the MVP, most valuable player, I think that Allen is definitely more important to his team than Lamar is. I think without Josh Allen, the Bills win probably 4 games maximum. And they probably split with the Patriots and maybe beat the Dolphins once. And you can throw 2 other games in there. But I would put the Bills at a 4-12 record without Josh Allen. I think if you look at Lamar Jackson and you look at the weapons he has, he's got a young developing Zay Flowers, developing Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, who's not at the top of his game this season, slightly regressing. And then you have one of the best running backs of all time, in my opinion, Derrick Henry, in your backfield. I think it's hard to give somebody the MVP who has that many weapons on offense, but then if you turn around and look at the other side of the ball, all of the weapons he has on defense, all-pro linebacker Roquan Smith. He's got a Hall of Famer, most likely, in Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Hamilton, who's only in his second year, but he's dominating the league at the safety position. Marlon Humphrey. young rookie Nate Wiggins, who did really good this season as well. I think that Lamar has a better supporting group around him. I think that I think Aaron made a good point. Allen beat Lamar in the playoffs. A lot of people were arguing about the 35-10 victory the Ravens had over the Bills in the regular season, but when it came down to get the job done, it was Allen and the Bills on top. So I don't think that they got anything wrong necessarily. I do want to touch on Aaron's point about Jamar Chase and the Offensive Player of the Year. I think that it really could have gone either way. I think Saquon could have won it. I think Jamar Chase could have won it. I think if Jamar Chase won it, it would have made his bargaining price a lot higher for this upcoming offseason, trying to get a contract extension. On top of that, also, the Bengals have to re-sign T. Higgins. They're having to re-sign T. Higgins, losing a lot of people on defense. I know Trey Hendrickson just requested a trade, and so did Jermaine Pratt. So losing their defensive end, who led the NFL in sacks this season, and then Jermaine Pratt, who is basically their core linebacker. So I don't think they really got anything wrong. I don't think that there was a lot of snubs, as people would like to say. I don't know. I think the NFL honors was good this season. I'm happy with it, basically.
I think we honestly probably agree more than we disagree. I think it's just the way you define the MVP. Do you define it as which player is most valuable to their team in a given season, or do you define it on which player had the best season in a given season?
I think that you have to define it as who is more valuable. If it was a stat award, if you look at it, Christian McCaffrey would have won MVP last year. Dak Prescott would have won MVP last year, or even Josh Allen would have won MVP last year. Josh Allen had better stats than Jackson in basically every category except for turnovers. And then when Allen has 40 total touchdowns in a season and his career lowest in turnovers, it's hard not to give him the MVP. Aaron, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I feel like, you just got to look at the name of the reward, most valuable player. I don't think it's a team stat whatsoever. So I feel like if you like, say you're Derrick Henry, like say if you just rush 2,000 yards of the season, and I don't know, I just feel like if people look at that as a team stat, I don't even know what I'm like trying to get at. I just feel like it's just the player itself should be looked at the MVP reward and not the team performance. Like on what you said earlier, it was like if the Bills didn't have Josh Allen, they'd go like a 4-12 record. It's just like, even if that was, say, the issue, I don't even like know what I'm like trying to get at. I just feel like you can't look at the people around them just for a reward. Like, does what I'm saying like make sense at all?
Yeah, I get what you're trying to say. I get the point you're trying to get at. The MVP being just the specific player and not everybody else around them. That exactly. Makes sense.
Yep.
But I do think that it still plays a role in the deciding factor for the award. On to our next and final topic, college basketball. We're getting into March Madness season. And right now, the SEC is kind of dominating basketball. I think the SEC has the most ranked teams in the nation right now. Are you guys looking forward to March Madness this year?
Oh, absolutely, man. As a Tennessee fan, coming off that year with Dalton Connect, it was unreal, man. Just seeing how, like, where he came from, like a JUCO school, to just absolutely dominating the SEC, and just he can dunk and shoot on anyone he wants. Now, this year, I do think it's different with Chaz Lanier. He did come from a similar situation, but he's just not as consistent as Connect. And I don't like that people will compare him to Dalton Connect. Just because you come from a JUCO level school doesn't mean you're gonna have the same skill level. He's absolutely a talented player, 100%, but he's not doing what Tennessee needs. And I feel like Tennessee's best player being Zakai Ziegler is just not good because he's like 5'8". Having a guy that's 5'8" on your team scoring 30 it's not going to go well. Which has shown. We got beat by Florida a couple weeks back by 40 points as the number 1 seed. We lost to Vanderbilt. We lost to Kentucky last week. But we did beat Vanderbilt yesterday. So there is some hope sometimes. I do think we are the best defensive team in the country whenever they want to play defense. And whenever we can actually play offense and shoot from the three, we're absolutely a dangerous team and contender in the SEC. Now, I think currently the best team is obviously going to be Auburn, but I think it's closer than what people say it is. I say Auburn and Alabama are very close contenders to being that number 1 seed. I know Auburn did just beat Alabama by like 10 points yesterday, but I just feel like the skill is just so similar to each other, and with basketball, it's so unpredictable. I mean, the worst team can beat the best team, and it doesn't really affect nothing. But I feel like I could see Auburn going probably to the Final Four, maybe even the championship. I don't know. I see Tennessee getting eliminated in the Sweet 16 as always, being the most disappointing team in the SEC, show such life and then just die out. So I don't know. The SEC is such a competitive conference, and even outside of it as well. There's just so many teams that are good this year, and it's competitive.
Luke, you looking forward to March Madness this year?
Oh, I'm absolutely looking forward to March Madness, and I think it's going to be interesting too, because last year you sort of had Zach Edey. Like, that was the big name in college basketball, and it was just going to be impossible to beat Zach Edey, who was playing for the Boilermakers. And obviously you saw that with Tennessee. And this year's Tennessee team, while it's lost a couple of good players, Connect being one of what he was for the Lakers, I think Tennessee's team this year is built for a comeback, though, which is something that they were not built for last season. They couldn't score points in a quick and timely manner. It was consistent scoring, but if they went down 10, 15 points, it was really like it was just a hole they could never dig themselves out of. I think this year's Tennessee team is different. I think they can overcome the adversities. I think you saw that with the comeback that they had against Vanderbilt. I think they're built for a comeback. They're built for defense, and they say defense wins championships. And it'll be exciting to see if that's true.
I think you're 100% right. Well, that's going to wrap up our Pioneer Sports Roundtable. I'm your moderator, Jake. With me today were Luke and Aaron, and we hope you enjoyed. Have a good rest of your day.